Do that we're
Yeah.
live.
What's up, everybody? We're live, and I'm here with Dorian, who's amazing. You probably know Dorian from his YouTube channel, Dorian Develops, and you know, based on his Twitter posts, you either like him or hate him, because they're hilarious sometimes. But what I wanted to do is have a discussion with Dorian because a lot of times people don't see the person behind, like the YouTube channel behind the live, and it's actually not as easy as people think to do all those things. So the first thing I want to say, like, thank you, Dorian, for being here. Like, super amazing. Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's nice to be able to do this. I know we've chatted before in the past, so it's cool to get together again and do something like this. So thanks for
Yeah,
having
it
me.
was amazing because back then I think maybe had 12,000, 15,000 subscribers, and we like talked, we chatted. It was like really low key, and I want to do the same thing today. But it's amazing to see your growth and like what you accomplished like on YouTube, and you actually like pivoted on your channel a little bit, the type of content you make, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, because nothing on YouTube is free. You got to put in the price and you got to put in the work. But I wanted to start to kind of talking through kind of like from the beginning to where you grew up initially. I know before you mentioned you were in Miami, and it was like you were there until like you're like 16, 17, which I think like very prime time. Like that's where you kind of start to define yourself, moving from young adult to an adult almost, and then you move to Vegas. So maybe we could start there.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and raised in Miami, and I was just a dirty little Cuban kid that grew up there. My mom's from Cuba. She's an immigrant, and I don't know my dad. So yeah, I grew up in like Little Havana, Alapata area, which is kind of not really the best area, although I've heard Alapata's been getting gentrified lately, and like they're building like high rises there now, which is kind of weird. But yeah, I grew up, got into a lot of trouble when I was like a teenager, just doing stupid stuff, and then eventually, my mom thought, to get me out of trouble, we should move to Vegas. So after I was arrested a few times as a teenager, on my last offense, we somehow convinced my probation officer to let us move to Las Vegas in order to try to like get me out of Miami. He agreed as long as I proved that I actually moved. And when we moved to Vegas, we sent him a postcard and signed some paperwork. I got off of probation, and then I kind of didn't do much for a while. I was young, and at that age in Vegas, there's not a lot to do when you're 17, 18 years old. So I kind of was moping around. I wanted to go back to Miami. Eventually, I got a job and started straightening up. Got into some more trouble in Vegas, but nothing that ever impacted my record, I guess. And then eventually, once I got to like being like early 20s, I started really like focusing on just trying to work and make some money and try to do a little bit better. So I worked a lot of like Vegas type jobs, parking cars, waiting tables, hotel work and customer service stuff. So that's kind of like my come up story. And then eventually, by the time I was in my early 30s, I decided to learn how to code and taught myself how to code and got a job as a programmer. And that was like at the age of 32. I'm 39 now, so it's been a little
Getting
while
up
doing
there.
it professionally. Yeah. To this year I'll be 40, which is pretty nuts to think. But that's like the elevator story of how I grew up and became a programmer, I guess. And
Yeah,
as
no,
condensed as I can make it.
no, that's fine, that's fine. And so like, did your mom ever like remarried or just single mom, like bringing you up
Mm,
and?
No, single mom. She had her own struggles, so it was we kind of it was just like me and her for the most part. So I always kind of like took care of her, which is it's always been like a weird dynamic. Just like when I was growing up, she worked and stuff, but then about like in my early 20s, like I remember we had an apartment together, and I had like a buddy of mine that was a roommate, and like my mom stopped working, and I kind of like supported her, and then eventually she went on like retirement because she's older,
Yeah.
for like having me at, I think she had me when she was like 38. So she had me like at my age now. So,
Yeah.
when I was in my 20s, she was already like getting up there in age and getting into her 60s or close to it. So it was a strange dynamic, but kind of like minority Spanish families, you kind of, the young take care of the old sometimes, and that's kind of how it worked out. So for a long time, like I took care of my mom. And, people would be like, "Oh, you live with your mom." I'm like, "No, no, no. She lives with me."
Yeah, yeah. And then people like, yeah, I'm just saying that. No, 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 no. This is how it is. Dude, that's, I mean, that in itself, just like growing up with a single mom and like having to kind of like figure out like that male role. It's like, hey, I have to be a provider, I have to be a like a supporter, and that's hard, like for everybody. I'm sure like it was for your mom, for you. And so like just to kind of piggyback off that, like now that you're married, you have kids, like I'm like I see you're always hustling and you're always like, I gotta be there. Like, is the stuff that you're doing like on YouTube, like coding, was the big motivation like your family, or what keeps you
I
going?
So it's so funny that you mentioned that. So I'm looking for my phone and I'm using the webcam on my phone, so I can't look at it. But I have a daily reminder, and I forgot where I got it from, but it was some book or something I was reading was like set a daily reminder to go off and like to keep you focused on the stuff that you want. And on that I have like family, happiness, health, and freedom. And so every morning at like 7 a.m. that goes off, and it's like to remind me about those things. And I think the YouTube thing, it it kind of started as the timing was strange, but it started as like me kind of wanting to have like a little side hustle. And I, right before that, I started a jiu-jitsu blog, and I was kind of like diving into like how you can make money online. And when you start looking into that stuff, everybody's like, "Oh, grow a social media following." And I I didn't want to just make it to like make money, but of course like that was a big incentive if I could make that happen. So like when I like my first few videos were about like how I was starting a blog and how I was going to try to like make money online. And originally my channel was named Watch Dorian Burn because I was going to try to like
Mm.
do financial independence, retire early, so it was a stupid name that I came up with. And then after making a couple of videos talking about like trying to get financial independence, but realizing that like except for having a little bit of money from selling my house, it's not like I was an investor or I knew any
Yeah.
of that stuff. And I was just like, what the hell can I talk about? And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to talk about learning how to code because that was something that I did. I felt like I was experienced enough with it where I can kind of, talk about it without having to think about it much. And then I also felt like when I was learning how to code, there was a lot of like technical content, but there wasn't a lot of like I want to say like mental strategy or like mental coach. And especially for like the self-taught programmer route, like I remember like there was a lot of times when I was learning how to code that I felt like, man, I'm too dumb for this. I'm too old for this. I'm too ghetto for this. I'm too like, just like I'm not the type of person that learns how to code, but I eventually did. And I felt like, there's probably a lot of other people out there that come from similar backgrounds, or even if they don't, they probably still feel a lot of those same things. So I just kind of started talking a little bit more about like all of that stuff. So basically it was me just talking about imposter syndrome and like not knowing what to do, not knowing what to learn, feeling like I wasn't going to be able to. And then that kind of led to the content that I tried to make for it. So
Yeah, one thing that I know about your channel, because I also kind of like already on my journey of learning to code, but I was on that self-taught route. And the channels that I actually like, that's how I found your channel. I started first watching Coding Face because he's just like real talk, real talk. And then I discovered your channel. What I liked about it's like you're not like when you started your coding journey, you weren't like, let me pretend to be this coder and I have a YouTube channel. You just talked about like your process and your journey. I was like, hey, this is like a real human being I could relate to with my struggles and continue moving forward. So I think that was like very cool and very interesting. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to your channel is that like you were yourself. And what's interesting about being yourself sometimes, we could talk a little bit about this too as well, is people they're gonna be like, oh, we like him, or some people gonna be like, we don't like him. And so like growing on YouTube, like what has, and we'll circle back because I have ADHD, I'm all over the place, but I'm kind of curious since we already talked about this is like it's your personality. And so can you talk a little bit about like haters on YouTube and you know why you just kept going through it anyway.
Yeah, no, no, for sure, and definitely shout out to Joe from Coding Phase because he's like an OG. I remember watching him when I was learning how to code, and he's shown me a lot of love and support. And he was one of like the first few people that even like hit me up when I was a super small channel and like had me on to chat on his channel. So like he doesn't get enough props,
No, Joe
but I
doesn't get enough props, and like
yeah,
that's hundred
for
percent.
sure, for sure, and I definitely related to him a lot when I was learning how to code because me and him kind of have similar backgrounds. But as far as like the haters go, man, like before we started talking, I said like I could open up my hold for review comments where YouTube kind of censors some comments based off of what people are saying so that you don't see it and it doesn't hurt your feelings. And every once in a while, like I'll go through them to kind of like bring me back down to earth because it's weird how like you'll get like a bunch of positive comments and then it takes is like that one negative comment to really be like, oh,
Yeah,
you nah. Like like if we were in the same room together. But some of it does kind of help keep you honest. And behind some of those negative comments, I guess you could you could try to find a constructiveness, or the constructive criticism that there might be. Some of them are just pure hate, but it's the internet, right? And people have that ability to say whatever they want without repercussion or actually being able to have like a real discussion with someone. They just want to spew some hatred. And I've learned to do my best to ignore them, but I'd be lying if I said that they didn't bug me because I still catch one occasionally. And I found that like something that I do is I'll start like typing a response. And sometimes I spend more time like thinking about the response and typing it than I should. And then I've even there's been times when I like type out a whole response and then delete it. I'm like, no, like I'm not gonna give these people the satisfaction of getting a response from me because that's kind of like what they want, right? And
yeah,
they want to get under your skin. And I let some comments live in my head rent free longer than I should have.
yeah.
So I do my best to just ignore it as much as I can. But I think it just comes with the territory, especially like if you get bigger. I've had some videos that I would say are viral, at least viral for me. Like I think like my most viewed video is close to like 2 million views now.
No, wow.
And there's a ton of hate there in the jiu-jitsu video that I made that ended up like going viral. It's actually like one of my most like, as far as like getting views, it's still my most viewed in the amount of time it's been out video. And I do think that with enough time it'll be my most viewed video, which is just weird because it's completely off topic. But even in that video, I've got like some of the meathead jiu-jitsu MMA guys in there that are just like, oh, you're such a punk, stop being so soft. And I was just like, oh, whatever. Like I really try not to let it get to me. But there's a lot of good comments too, so it does balance out, and there's always more good than bad for the most part.
Yeah, and that's like the interesting thing about like YouTube. Like you're like publicly speaking, you talk like sending information, you're interacting with folks like through chat, whatever, like through comments. And I think a lot of people on YouTube forget that you're not actually like you're still a human being. You still have a life. You still have all those things to do. And one thing I've like remember is like as a kid, like I was born in Russia. I know it's not popular. I'm like half Ukrainian, half Russian, and like you'll quickly learn like if you have nothing nice to say, you probably shouldn't say it because there's going to be repercussions for it. And then in this age of internet, that's like people could run their mouth without the repercussion. It's kind of like crazy. And some people do, it does affect them. People take to heart because you try your best, and then all of a sudden someone says something, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, there goes like my confidence. I thought I was like doing the things that I wanted to do. So that is crazy. And funny, I was watching completely random video. I forgot who it was. It wasn't even like anything to do with coding. It was some guy talking about jujitsu, and he had a clip of your video from your jujitsu video in his video. I was like, wow, what a small world. It's you know, um, and so Alex had a question. Let me circle back to it. So he wanted to know a little bit more like your journey specific to coding. So how did you learn how to code? What tools did you use? How long did it take? And how did you land your first job? Man, he's like asking a lot of questions. And what kind of job it was? Um,
So it took me close to a year, like 10 months roughly, to like from starting to learn to like landing a job. But I did do some other learning before that, because before I decided to learn how to code, went down like, I was thinking about getting into networking. So I like did the CompTIA A+. I studied for that. I actually got my CompTIA A+ cert. And then I was moving on into the Net Plus stuff. And I started learning like the Cisco certification stuff. And I was like really bored of that stuff. And then eventually I moved into learning how to code because a buddy of mine was like, "You should really try this programming stuff." But it was never something I even considered, because I was just like, "No, like that's for smart people." And he convinced me to like give it a try. And then once I started doing a few little the tutorial he recommended, and like he gave me his password to his Udemy to try this Ruby on Rails course that he was doing. And after I
Oh
did a
man,
little bit
that
of
was
that,
you're dating yourself. You're dating yourself.
yeah, this was like
Yeah,
2016.
yeah.
So it's been a while. And after doing like half of that course, I was hooked. And I was just like, the hell with these certifications. It's super boring reading those textbooks and brain dumping. I found another course, and eventually I just used as many like free resources as I could. Like I did a lot of free code camp. I did some of the Odin project. I did like a little bit of the CS50 curriculum, and I jumped around a lot of different stuff. I bought a few courses like everybody does, and then I just kind of just Googled everything. YouTube was my best friend, and just kept learning and building stuff. And eventually I built enough stuff and followed enough, knowledge from the internet to start, building out a portfolio and my GitHub. And I started going to meetups and doing all that stuff that everybody tells you to do. And, sooner or later I was able to get a few interviews, and then I got a job. My first job, the job title was technically web developer one, I think, but it was for Caesars Entertainment, which is a big casino company out of Vegas. They're the
Nice.
people behind Caesar's Palace. And that was doing mostly AEM, which is Adobe Experience Manager, which is a content management system that's built by Adobe and just has a Java backend. And at the time, we were coming off of using jQuery, and the guys that I worked with, they tried to make the stack as fun as possible. So we started using TypeScript way, way
Oh
early.
my goodness.
And it was like vanilla TypeScript at that. There was no framework. And because this was like 2017. And so like some of my first tasks were like migrating some of our old jQuery code into like vanilla TypeScript. And we were using Kotlin instead of Java, which was fun and interesting. I had no idea what it was when I got hired. And I learned a lot from those guys. A lot of really smart developers. A few of them were self-taught. And it was, honestly, it could have been the best first job I could have had, because there was a lot of learning that happened there, not only from a development standpoint, but also understanding like how the corporate world worked and how much I grew to hate it
Yeah,
because of that.
yeah.
And how I watched like corporate structure and management ruin like a great development team and burn people out and cause people to quit. And it I learned so much from one job. I was there for like 2 years, and then I moved and got another job, got a couple offers, decided to move to Washington State off of one of the offers, and then kept doing the thing. And
Y-
that's
What's
it.
what? Yeah, what's crazy? Like the story described, like in a way mimics like my story. And there's another dude here in the chat, Alex. Like he talked about how he got hired. It's like a very similar approach. You just do your work, you put in the time, you apply to like jobs. Some you're gonna get, some I mean you're not gonna get, but like you're just gonna like it's just gonna be hard, but you just do it. You just keep showing up, and then eventually you get a job. And it might not be the title you want, it might not be the position you want, but now you're in the door. And so it's not like you watch these videos on YouTube. It's like I got a fake job in 6 months and I make $1 bajillion. That's just like complete nonsense. And I've seen so many people, like I've started to code, like I've been in the industry. So like I'm 43 now, so like going on my fifth year, like professionally coding. I'm not counting my entrepreneurial endeavors where I used to build WordPress sites as a solopreneur. But like it was just like you just do the work. You just like don't make excuses. Like, and now like if you watch videos from like 3 years ago, 4 years ago to watch videos now, people are like there's no junior developer jobs, or there's no this, or there's that. You need bootcamp, or you don't need bootcamp. You need CS. It's just like you just gotta do the work, and you eventually gonna get there. And that's what people are missing and not realizing. I feel like, and that's why like your channel makes like I like because it was just like you talking about like what we're doing. I like coding phase because like just become a email developer first. Like screw going to like Fang and Apple or what have you. And I feel like there's just like sometimes people just don't like they underestimate the work that it takes, and like and part of it is like the hustle, the interviews, and all this other stuff. And some people quit. And so like when I started my journey, there are people that I still see today that they're like still trying to become a developer, but like they started like the same time I did, and I've been working in the industry almost 5 years, and I'm like, what the hell were you doing? And so um let's kind of talk about like your first job, and like when you started working at like there, you were still doing the YouTube channel. So like let me ask, I guess, like why did you just like it's like I made it, I got hired, why did you decide to continue your YouTube channel at that point?
Well, I didn't the YouTube channel didn't start till like 2020. So that was
Okay.
like on my second developer job,
Oh
like
shit.
halfway through that. And it was more like around COVID time, which
Yeah.
is funny because I think my first video was like early March 2020. So I'm officially like 4 years on YouTube, which is just
Damn.
crazy to think. But I wish I would have actually documented a lot of my
Yeah.
learning, and I wish I would have documented a lot of that stuff from the beginning. It's actually one of my like regrets as a self-taught programmer and now a content creator, is that I missed out on a lot of good content and a lot of learning that I could have had I been making videos and trying to just explain some of the stuff I was learning. I think at the time, like when I was learning, I like social media, like I've never been on social media, except for maybe having like a MySpace or a Facebook page. It just wasn't like I didn't ever think of it as a business thing, and it always was just something like, oh, show my pictures of like being somewhere, or doing something cool, or hey, I got a stripe on my jiu-jitsu belt, let me post a picture on Facebook. Like
Yeah.
it was never like I can make this a business. And I wish I would have thought about that more when I was starting out. And I tell people to do that now. um but
It
it's it's not for everyone, right? And
no, it really isn't. It really isn't
into
for everybody. No.
it's almost to like take it back to like what we were like when we were talking about like the haters and like putting yourself out there. Like I've put myself out there in the last year on a more personal level than I ever thought I would have. Like I talked about a lot of like different struggles and like mental health and just all kinds of different stuff, like it's trying to get sober and trying to get in shape. And it was actually like the worst thing I could have done for my channel, like from a business standpoint, because I had like a lot of success for like learning how to code and becoming a programmer content.
Yeah.
And that's like what really grew my channel, was a lot of that. Although I had some one-off hits,
Yeah.
with like talking about other stuff, but really you look, I have like 300 videos, and 260 of them are learning how to code stuff, right? So if you look at my channel, I'm a coding channel in
Yeah.
one way or the other. But then I started putting myself out there at a personal level, but I still have so much imposter syndrome when it comes to like coding, that like I don't do a lot of like actual programming on my channel. I'm like the only programming channel that doesn't actually do any programming. I've done a few live streams where I'm like updating my portfolio. And recently I was like updating my brand website and I showed that stuff. But it was like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm a good teacher, and that's only because I've never really tried to teach. I've had like junior developers or like new developers that have come to our teams, and I've helped them, get to know the code base. I've helped them figure out whatever problems they've had. I've seen where like I'm strong and I'm a good developer because I've worked with a lot of different people, and I can tell when like someone's kind of weak and someone's not that good, and I can tell when someone is really good, and I can tell when like someone is really bad. And I know that I'm not the best programmer, but I know that I don't suck either. Like if you put me in a code base, like I'm going to be able to figure things out. but I'm not, I'm not a computer science graduate. I haven't been
Yeah.
doing this for 20 years. And to get, to a point where I'm like making videos teaching people, I feel like I don't know if I could ever be there, because I just don't feel like I'm ever going to be good enough to teach,
you,
even though I
you,
probably am.
that's respect, like the fact that you're able to say all that stuff. Because like I much rather appreciate people that go the route you did and just honestly just say, here's the thing, than people that pretend. To me, like, because they like, to be honest, to make a video on coding is not that hard. Go find a tutorial, copy what they did, re-record it, make your own video. You're done. Like, and that's what 80% of people out there. By the way, we have Tech Rally trolling a little bit. He's like, Dorian sucks. He
Uh,
doesn't want us to work at companies. Listen, Tech Rally is a big Amazon. I think you're still at Amazon. Developer, senior duper developer, goes the whatever route. I hear you. How's you? Yeah. Anyway, how are you doing, Alex? Great to have you here. But here's the thing: like Tech Rally started with his YouTube channel, which is like, and he hasn't posted a video in like forever. And I finally got more views than him. Jesus Christ. Thank God. I must be doing something right. But the point is, the reason why Tech Rally, I'm going to just go on a whim. I'm reading your mind, Tech Rally. Why you're not posting videos on YouTube is because it's goddamn hard work. It takes so much time that Tech Rally decided, let me focus on my life, my job, and my career, and let me do the things that I need to do, because like everything takes time. So every little thing that you do that pulls you away into different directions, like it's very, 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 very hard. And so let me just actually follow up with this question. Like, how do you manage your time, like between like work, between like your YouTube channel? And now I'm assuming like, I mean, I only have like barely like 9,000 subscribers, maybe 10 almost. But like for me, like I don't really care. But for you, like your YouTube channel is like your job at this point, and you have to take it seriously. You have to be committed to your work. So how do you manage your time between like your YouTube channel and other things that you want to do in life?
So when I started the channel, like I said, it was just the timing was I guess perfect in a sense, because I had started it and then COVID happened, and we went full remote from my job that I was working, and then I had free time. I was doing a little bit of YouTube while I was on the clock, and some tasks might have taken me a little longer because I was editing a video, not because I was stuck. But don't tell my former employer that. But nonetheless, like I can't say that I did it in a healthy way. And there was a bit of like, it became like my main hobby and obsession, right? Like COVID happened, jujitsu stopped. So I wasn't going to gym anymore. I couldn't go to the regular gym. We couldn't really leave the house. So there was just me in my office working and then making videos and then trying to like squeeze in some of the family time. But I'd be lying if I said that I didn't like neglect my family a little bit in some of those days when I would stay up like trying to make a video, or trying to edit a video and trying to get stuff out, or like, oh, this new topic that just happened, I need to go run and make a video on that. And I do regret that a bit. And then like a big reset for me was actually when I left my job the first time to try to do YouTube full time when we went to Europe a year and a half ago. God, it's time flies, but like a year and a half ago now. And that was honestly like the best thing that I could have done, because recently I've become like the grumpy programmer who's burnt out of his job and doesn't want to work a job anymore. But I realized that like spending that time with my family and traveling more, and then like realizing more of like what I want from my work and my family life, and like where I see myself in the future is having like more flexibility to be able to travel and do things like that. But then like things happen, we came back, I jumped back into another job. It was a design job this time. It wasn't a programming job, because I convinced myself that I needed a break from programming. And so I said, you know what, this opportunity came up. It was a good gig, working at the state where I was working before, but something completely new where it was 100% design. Even though I've done a little bit of design in the past, I was like, you know what, I'll take this. It'll give me a break. And then I quickly realized that I like nothing changed. Like like even though I tried to convince myself that it's like, oh, I have a great job, this is exactly what I want, I focused on my health, I stopped making as much content, like I laid off of YouTube a lot, and then I just worked and I spent time with my family, and I went back to the gym and I got in shape and I felt good again. I still felt like I just didn't want to like do the 9 to 5 grind. And I found that that was like the thing that really, like, I don't know, the thing I disliked the most. So a year passed, our lease was up from the rental that we had, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going all in this time, and we're gonna travel again because my wife and I both missed the traveling. The kids are like looking forward to traveling again, and we were just like, well, why are we staying here? But the funny thing is that right now my YouTube channel is probably making the least amount of money
Oh my
that it ever
goodness.
has. But like there's never a perfect time, and I know that if I have my complete open schedule to be able to make content 8 hours a day and focus on this full time, I know that I can grow it back to be bigger and better. And that's what I'm gonna focus on doing now that we're kind of settled in one spot for a little while. I'm gonna upload as much as I can, get ready for our trip to Asia, and then just see where this takes us. So
We had Alex ask, like, between your family, your YouTube, and when you were working, how did your typical day look like? When would you actually create the content?
So it's funny you mentioned you have ADHD, and I'm not formally diagnosed, but I've had some assessments done, and I'm pretty sure I've got some form of ADHD myself. So it's almost like a, if since you've had it, you know how it is, where it when you find something you want to do, you focus on that 100% tunnel vision.
Yes.
Nothing can stop you. You forget to eat, you forget to sleep, and that's kind of how I am too. So I just balance doesn't really work for me. Like I'm
Yeah.
either like all or nothing, and I've noticed that with like my addictions and
Yep.
other areas of my life as
So
well. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna quickly say, yeah, like the fact that you brought like ADHD people actually like they do have tendency for addiction, and I don't publicly speak about it, but I've had some addiction issues as well. And it's true, like you're either on or you're off, and you don't get to this like you don't control that, by the way. So when you are on, you're like, I better get as much uh stuff done as I can. Yeah, so keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
No, 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 for sure. Yeah, and I can get into the whole addiction thing because I've been sober now, like going on 7 months, and it's like the
Nice.
longest I've ever been sober my whole life since I was like a teenager. But yeah, like it's hard for me to turn it off when I'm all in on something, and when I go all in on something, like I go hard. It's honestly, I think, one of the reasons why I learned to code and got a job. Like that 10 months, I'm sorry if I got dogs
Oh,
barking,
no
and so it
worries.
might be a little loud, but that 10 months of me learning to code, like that was an like a very unhealthy 10 months for me. Like I went to work, and everything else I did was learning how to code. It was either a YouTube video was on in the background. I was like, I would wake up, I would open my laptop in the morning on my days off, and I would fall asleep with it on my lap. Like, no lie. Like, that is how I did it. Like, I'd go to work and I'd have podcasts and audiobooks about learning how to code. I'm listening to like eloquent JavaScript and the what is it, the JavaScript, like the hard parts or
Yep,
something
yep,
like that.
yep,
I would listen to that on audiobooks, and then when like the shift slowed down, because I worked graveyard at a strip club and I was parking cars, and like when I had downtime, they allowed me to have my laptop and on my cell phone, like I was studying. Like, it was literally, there wasn't a moment of the day when my life wasn't consumed with coding. And that's it was the same thing when I discovered jiu-jitsu. And I was going twice a day, 6 times a week, and training and competing, and I was like that with video games. It's just I eventually started applying it to good things, and like that's the same thing I did with YouTube, and that's kind of like how I approach everything. And I wish I could say that I was better at balancing. The thing is, I have a good wife who's not afraid to check me on that stuff, and she's quick to be like, hey, like, you're not around enough, like, stop screwing around, like, you're we need you over here. And then when she does, like, I realize, okay,
yeah,
I get snapped back to like, oh yeah, okay, sure, sorry, I didn't realize that I was in my office for 12 hours. It's
dude.
just
Yeah.
how it is.
No, that's amazing, and I'm glad like you have very supportive family because that's something. And this could follow up from another question. Northern Chip says, in case of learning to code, he was kind of giving this. advice like if you have an addiction, shift your addiction to coding. But the thing is, like, if you have an addicting personality, you will that addiction will manifest somewhere. And it might not be the thing you were doing that was really bad, but maybe it'll be like jujitsu, maybe it'll be coding, maybe it'll be like whatever. And it still takes you away from like family time. And so this is a story I don't share. When I started my journey to learning to code, I've shared it a few times, but like not very publicly. Like I had like a wonderful fiance. We were doing this whole thing, and she's you know, the type of woman that was like everything's okay until it's not, and that's not the right way of doing it. So because every time she says to me everything is okay, I assume like you're fine with me working this hard. You're fine with me like burning the candle on both sides, like me working, coming home, studying, doing all the stuff, like not having enough time because you knew that at some point, and it blew up in my face. We ended up that deciding that hey, we probably should take a little break, and so we went our separate parts. So there is this real danger if you don't communicate with your partner or your family. Like you have to understand that other people count on you, and you have to take that into account because it's very easy to get lost in your thing. Yeah, so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I 100% get where you're coming from too. And like my wife and I, we've been together for a long time now. Like we've been married for 10 years.
Oh wow.
So and it's crazy to even say that because it's just like, I mean, I met her when I was in my early 20s, like 23 or 24. So like we really know each other well. And there was she was like that as well. And then seeing where when I'm starting to like slip into the danger zone of like doing too much. And also like I noticed it like early on because I started learning how to code when my daughter was born and my son was on the way. And
Mm.
there was a lot of time where like my wife, like man, like she's superwoman, dude. Like she was taking care of the kids. Like I was learning how to code, and there was times when, like that I remember telling her and being like, I am going to do this and I'm going to keep doing this until somebody hires me. I was like, I don't care. Cause it was like, should I go to boot camp? I'm too old to go back to college. I don't have the time. And like, I worked in Vegas parking cars at like a really busy club. Like we made decent money, right? So it was just like it was not a career, but it wasn't like honestly like taking the it was funny because I took my first development job and I was still parking cars Friday nights at the strip club for almost a whole year. I worked a 9 to 5 at that first dev job for Caesars. And on Friday nights at 1 in the morning, I would wake up and I would go and I'd work until noon on Saturday for my shift because I didn't want to give up that shift because like we needed the money. And honestly, like the money from parking cars was pretty good. So then for me to be like, hey, I'm gonna take all this time. You have a newborn, you're pregnant, and I'm gonna make a career change and I'm going to learn how to do this by watching YouTube videos. There was a lot of doubt in her and me, but she's always the type that's like very encouraging and she's like, I know you can do anything you put your mind to. And she says something, she's like, I always knew you were gonna make it on YouTube, even when I thought your videos sucked. Like she tells me that, right?
Listen,
And it's funny because I still quote that because it's so real. Like I would make her watch my early videos, and she doesn't know shit about programming. She's like, this is cool. So you're gonna grow this into like something that makes us money. I'm like, watch, it's gonna happen, and it did. I mean, I've made money on YouTube, and it's not like as much as I've made as a programmer, but I think that if I continue to do it, it could be good enough for what we need for right now.
listen.
So,
I was gonna say you're divulging YouTube secrets because everybody on the internet thinks YouTubers make bajillion dollars and they got Lambos and all this other nonsense.
oh
It's
no.
first of all like YouTube doesn't give you health insurance. By the way, that's another like cost that people don't think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave up my pension for YouTube AdSense, and it was a terrible decision, honestly.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I think that it does offer a lot of other stuff too. I think that there's like, and we were kind of talking about this before, right? That like I don't think like I don't see myself doing YouTube strictly as like the only source of revenue that I make right now as I'm trying to like go into full time. I don't even know what to call this. I don't know if it's entrepreneurship or whatever I'm trying to do, content, and then maybe like some indie hacking as I start to travel and code more. Like I think that's where I see myself going, but I don't see myself like trying to be a full-time YouTuber. But it's weird how I think it's going to play out because I pretty much have to be a full-time YouTuber in order to not be a full-time YouTuber, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
where I'm at right now, YouTube is the only thing that's making me any real money. And in order for me to be able to support myself, I'm going to have to like pump out content.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to have to continue to do that. But it's going to be like, since I have to do it, it's going to, I am assuming it's going to continue to grow and I'm going to make some money doing that. But I'll have to go like full time in order so that I don't have to be full time forever on it. But
Yeah.
that's the plan for right now.
Yeah, no, and it's wild because like everybody you talk to, they're like the grass is always green on the other side. They're like, "Oh, you're a YouTuber now. You got it all figured out," or "You're like a developer now." Like you're, and it's just like doesn't matter what path you choose. There's gonna be hard work and stuff that's not gonna go your way, and you just kind of have to like deal with it. So to me, like, um, the funny part is like I see all these people turn to YouTubers and even me, like, and they're like, "What's the secret?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, the secret is like you work hard and you just don't quit and you just do the right thing." It's like, like for instance, like you didn't get to where you are by sitting on your ass. Like, and some people like get like upset when I say that, but it's the truth. The only caveat being here, if you're from another country where you don't have opportunities at all, even if you try to be, let me work hard, let me put in the hours, like, yeah, that's crazy. So we are like privileged, like I guess living in US for like for some things, but at the same time, like you didn't get here because you woke up one day and you thought like let me like do this. You did it. You did the work. And so you talked about your plan like to continue to like do YouTube. I want to bring it back just a tiny bit because I know there was like because I'm kind of curious about it. There was a part like where you were making videos and then all of a sudden your videos just started looking too goddamn good. Like you were like a video professional videographer. Like your setup was like legit. The first part of the question is like, have you had any like previous experience, or is this something you kind of like picked up along the way?
So it's funny because I did some acting when I was God 22, and it was just like some student films for you some college kids at UNLV. I did some extra work. If you freeze frame Ocean's 13, you can see like a slice of me for like a millisecond.
It fucking
And I did
counts.
like
Just saying.
yeah, I did a couple like there was like some really cheesy, just like super low budget movies. So you could probably find me out there under my stage name. No porn, but even though everybody says I look like Johnny Sins, but I'll say that none of that prepared me. And besides, I was also a terrible actor. And none of that prepared me for YouTube. And if you go back to my first video, which I have like, it's not my first video, it's like my second video where I talk about like I spent $5,000 on like paying people to write blog posts. And then the next one is like how I was a high school dropout and got a GED and learned how to code. Like those are like my first videos, and they're like shot on a cell phone, terrible lighting, terrible audio. You can tell that I'm like in the one of the videos or one of those early videos, you can tell that like I'm reading off a script because I'm looking to the side where I was like holding the paper, and I cut it so badly. Like it's bad all around. And then you look at my videos now, that even if it's like, if I were to take my cell phone now and record a video, it would be so much better just because I'm so much more comfortable talking to the camera, and I know how to cut the videos now and make better videos. I did have an editor for a little bit, so some of those videos that were a bigger production had editors. But what's funny is that not many of my biggest videos, except for one, were all edited by me. Like
Yeah.
that jujitsu video, like I edited that video myself, and that got a million views. And my most viewed video on my channel was edited by me. And it's not like I'm a great editor. It just, it almost seems like people are kind of over the highly produced, over edited videos. But the thing is that I still feel that the algorithm favors those a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's something that, in the technology that YouTube uses, if they actually like have a way of checking if the video is better quality than others. But I do believe that there is an aspect of people watch better quality because it makes you look more professional and it makes you seem like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So early on, I bought like a Canon M50 was like my first big purchase for YouTube. And I bought like a couple of softbox lights on Amazon that were like, $50 each. And I started trying to figure out how to make my videos look better. And eventually I started learning how to like use my camera. And then I bought like a really nice camera. And I started trying to film my own B-roll. And then eventually I actually started filming my own B-roll and I started putting stuff together. And I've always liked movies. When I was younger, I was like the guy that owned a bunch of DVDs. And talk about dating yourself, right? Because DVDs, I don't think
What's a
people even buy
DVD?
those
Oh
anymore.
shit.
Yeah, all the Gen Zers are like, "What the hell's a DVD?" But like, I always enjoyed movies, and at one point in time, I thought that when I was much younger, I was like, "Oh, I can maybe write a screenplay one day." I never did, but with YouTube, I feel like I've watched enough movies and I understand it well enough to where like I can put some B-roll sequences together. And then I watched a bunch of videos on this stuff too. Like YouTube consumed my life for like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 2 years at least. And I've been doing it for four, but for like 2 out of those 4 years, like it was just, that's all I did was research how to be a better YouTuber.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's cool to hear like you have some like very brief and small acting and like parts and talk about the little second in Ocean's 12. So I did not acting, but I did a little bit of stunt work and I did like this awesome fight scene that I'm proud of. But the dude's like sitting on the thing and it's been like years and he's like, one day. I'm like, no, one day you're not releasing that shit. Just make it public so I could at least show people like, hey, look this cool project I've done. It's pretty wild and it's cool to see what you described to me though right now. Like if someone's looking to get into YouTube, you just described so much work
Oh,
that
dude,
it's
it's
like,
it's so much
why
work.
would anybody do YouTube? Period, unless you
Well,
like, like don't care about your time because it just takes time.
Well, so I've had people get mad at me because I've said this on my channel before, where I 100% believe this, and I know some people that might hear this might be like, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about." But as someone who has done both, I believe that being a successful YouTuber and growing a YouTube channel over 100,000 subscribers and having like a video that actually gets a million views is harder than becoming a self-taught programmer and
I
getting a job.
the
Like,
100%, 100%. Let me tell you, let this like I've mentioned this on my YouTuber before, like YouTube channel before. So like when I started my channel, I started as my journey to learning to code and be like, is it even possible? Like, can some like random like me? But at the same time, I was like, well, let me like try this YouTube thing. Let me like try this YouTube gig. And just to like, I've had my YouTube channel for like 6 years now. I'm only barely scratching 10,000K in the span of my YouTube channel. I switched 4 jobs as a developer, and I'm now making like six-figure income. Where I started making 30,000, my first job was a developer, and now I'm at a point where I'm like making six figures. On YouTube, I make like $20 a month, if that, at this point right now, and like 100%, you will get a job as a developer faster than you will have a successful YouTube channel. Like 100%.
it,
It's so annoying
it
too. It's like,
One, yeah, especially if you have to put this, if you put the same amount of time, like that's
100%.
the disclaimer. If you put the same amount of time that you put into a YouTube channel as you would to put into learning how to code, like 100% that it would be harder to grow the YouTube channel and make it successful, right? Because like I said, man, the worst thing I could have done for my channel was I killed a lot of momentum. Like when we went to Europe, I had a few good videos that popped off really well. And then we were traveling and I went from uploading, 2 to 3, 4 videos a week to like one, I think 1 month I uploaded like 4 videos that first month we were traveling, and I just crushed my momentum. And then I started talking about different stuff, and like it, from a business standpoint, it was terrible, but from a mental health standpoint, it was kind of nice, honestly. And I also got to a point where I started seeing myself become the YouTuber I didn't want to be. And don't get me wrong, I still make the stupid faces and thumbnails. I still do what it takes to try to get views on videos, but that doesn't mean I like it. And I noticed that, like, when I was doing that for coding content, it started to feel like all the people I never wanted to be on YouTube. And I was trying to make more clickbaity like things around coding, more like less substance, more sizzle, right? Like I was more worried about making a good video than getting good information out. And I didn't like where I was going. I also like the YouTube ad revenue is only good if you're getting a lot of views. Like there's people that'll be like, oh, the views don't equal dollars. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because 100% the views equal dollars. All views are worth like different dollar amounts, but the truth is like your sponsors are going to pay you more if you can get more views. Your AdSense is going to pay you more if you can get more views. You're going to sell more affiliate sales if you can get more views. It's a percentages game at that point, right? If you have 1,000 views and you get 1% of sales, well, that's 10 sales. If you have 100,000 views and you get 1% of sales, it's like, it's just basic math when you get to that point. And for people to be like, oh, the views don't matter. Well, it does when you're talking about like how much money you can make on it. So then you get on this, like, I have to make every video better than the last one. I have to like one up myself, and like how clickbaity can you make coding content? And I'm like my coding content was more targeted to beginners learning how to code. And then a lot of like the sponsors are started to reach out to me, man. Like there's one that I almost want to put on blast because they keep spamming me. And I've seen that there's a couple other big YouTubers in the coding space that have done, sponsor deals with them because they mention it in their email. And like I look at it and I'm just like, dude, this isn't worth the money.
Yeah.
Like it's like some online boot camp that like charges like $2,000 for their curriculum. And like it's like I, I wouldn't recommend that to a friend of mine, right? Like I'd be like, oh, you can do the same thing with just YouTube and some free resources. Don't pay $2,000 for that. But since they want to pay me money, it kind of changes that dynamic. And then I realized that, well, the content that I make is targeted to people that would buy this stuff. And if it's targeted to beginners and I'm trying to sell, like, it it becomes like a moral dilemma that I started dealing with. And I don't know, I just didn't like it. And that was a big reason why I was just like, you know what, I could start another channel and talk about whatever I want. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I brought this audience up from zero. And I'm like, if I'm gonna burn this channel to the ground, well, I'm gonna burn it to the ground doing what I want to do. So then you got videos of me doing ice baths and shit.
Yeah.
So that's just what it is.
And as you know what, and this is what people don't understand. Like when you start like getting like my YouTube channel, like if I have it, I don't like it's not affecting me because there's not a substantial amount of income that comes from it. And when you do get a channel that's generating some income that you're like, oh, I could possibly live on this, I could possibly grow it farther. You do have to play that like algorithm game. You do have to do the trending stuff. You do have to make videos that will do well because now it's your job. And so I feel like one of like hardest things is, and I'm like, lucky that it's not happening to me right now because I don't have to ask these questions of myself. But it's like you almost can't do a YouTube channel on the things that you started it with because that's not what's going to get views. And it's like, how do you balance that and how do you figure it out? And like I do, like, some people like will say, oh, he's got so many subscribers. I'm like, no, this dude's like, he's got a lot going on trying to figure out how to make things work and just like give people respect, but it is hard. Like you said, it's way easier to get a job as a developer. Even in today's economy, you're better off getting a job as a developer than you are starting a YouTube channel, like 100%.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I'm taking like a ridiculous pay cut right now.
yeah,
If I shared my numbers with you on like what I'm bringing in on YouTube, especially this last month because I wasn't able to upload as much as I wanted to because we were moving and packing and like we went on that cruise like I was telling you, and like I just haven't been on the hamster wheel as much, and I don't have the sponsors, and I have like a few like affiliate things,
yeah,
and I make a little bit of money on like my blog, which is not a lot of money.
yeah,
It's a substantial pay cut, but it's also another reason why I'm going to Asia because I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, at least there, like if I make three
Live on
thousand
less.
dollars a month, I'm good. Like we have a nice place. Like I'm already budgeting that, and I already know like what I have to make in order to live, and I can't do YouTube full time and do that in the US because the dollar amount's too high. But if we go to Asia, like I
Yeah,
100% can live off of $3,000 to $5,000 a month, which is about what I can make on YouTube right now, where I'm currently at
yeah,
with my drop in views and all that. And if I start pumping out content,
yeah,
then it'll start picking up, and I'll make more. And eventually, like I said, I want to kind of get off of YouTube and start looking at other ways to make money and do other things to try to achieve that financial independence that we all want. And if worse comes to worse, I can always get a dev job. Like
yeah.
I'm not worried about it.
And that is, yeah, I was gonna say that's the cool part about like people like don't learn like AI is gonna take whatever, like people could whatever, maybe one day AI will take our jobs, but not before Terminator 2 comes out and kills everybody anyway. So it's like don't worry
Yeah.
about stuff that hasn't happened. But for me, like I'm glad that I went the developer route because like there's always something I could do. And what I love about development is that even if I don't get hired, I have the skill to build my own product, my own SaaS, like my own thing. And yeah, it's not easy, but you still have the potential. You could do consultant work for people that building stuff. Like it's interesting because I work at Strappy now, and I used Strappy before working at Strappy, and I still love Strappy. And if I lose my job as like from Strappy, I'm gonna basically consult companies, and there's a lot of them that using Strappy like
Yeah.
for their thing. And I'm like, it's like I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. There's always like opportunity potentials if you're willing to widen your kind of scope and not be like I just gonna look FANG companies. Because FANG
Yeah.
companies is a small pool of people. You got to be smart. You got to have a good school, and or you have to have both. And that's
Yeah.
just not
And you got to
me.
be
That's
young too.
oh well, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
That's
and
something
yeah,
people don't talk about. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, for Fang for sure. I mean, I'm sure that there's people that are a little bit older that are getting hired, but like if you're over 40 and you're going to Fang, like you better be going into management roles or tech lead
Yes.
roles, and even then, like that's a young man's game because they ain't keeping a family man in the office from 6 to 6 like the fan companies try to do with all those perks that are actually built to keep you in office. And it was all great when everything was remote, but like everybody knows that they're moving everybody back into office because of their $1 billion investments for those campuses, and there's too much money on the line for them to let people keep working remotely. And it's that joke where you start seeing all the TikTok influencers start posting their day in the life videos, but like a lot of those perks that they offer is to try to keep you there working longer so
Yeah.
that you don't have to go home because you can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. And you don't have to pay for transportation if you take the Google bus to the campus because it gives you a ride there, but then you got your free Wi-Fi so you can just sit on the bus and work. Like it's just like little hidden ways to keep people working longer. And I don't think that somebody out of college, even if I was out of college, I'd totally do it. Like I used to park
Yeah.
cars for 12 hours a day. You think I wouldn't sit at Google for 12 hours a day? But
Hell
I
yeah.
ain't doing
Oh
that
yeah.
now. I'm
Yeah.
too old, and I got better things to do with my time than to go to work for extra hours that I'm not getting paid for. So
Yeah. It's
um
funny.
I
I was gonna quickly say Tech Rally. He said, "I'm old, bro. You're like 12, maybe 15. Like, how old are you, Tech Rally? Honestly, like you look, your skin looks so young and sweet. Maybe it's because I'm looking at the older videos from last year, but I don't know what he's talking about. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, I actually, it's funny because I've jokingly said a couple times that I think the only job that I would do now, like I actually got hit up for a consulting job, which you always got to check the recruiters because they like to label things consulting or freelancing when it's really not. It's really just a contract 9 to 5
Exactly.
job. But
Consulting.
yeah, consulting, but you have to sit there at these hours and be in all these meetings. But the DevRel or developer advocate, like, I think that if I were to jump into a job in the next, like, let's say while we're traveling, if I had to consider, like, I want, like, not I want to, but I have to get a job, I think that I would probably go and look for a DevRel or a
Yeah.
developer advocate kind of role,
Yeah.
because it's always piqued my curiosity. I have the, like, I'm capable of it. I don't know. There's not really a company in particular that I would say that I would go for right away. There's a couple that I was like, oh, those seem like cool companies, and I would totally like consider them if I would take one of those jobs. But I'm starting to feel that my content, I would probably have to delete half of my videos at this point, especially when I'm like complaining about
I have
working and
another
not wanting
question
a
for you
job
then.
anymore. And yeah, but
Because I was gonna say, like, because I work as a developer advocate at a company, and a lot of people make fun of it. That's not a real job. Maybe it's not, but I'm getting paid, so go. Who cares? And
yeah,
it's not an easy job as people describe. Like, I always watch these like people like for Fang, like I do this and this is my day in life, and it's like some cute chick and like whatever. I'm like, I got none of those things, and I work my ass off. So it's definitely hard work. But here's the thing: like a lot of times I'm on Twitter, and people say stupid stuff, and me being like a comedian, sometimes I'm just like, I have a good response to it. And as I start to type, I'm like, I can't, because my
like
Twitter is associated with my job, and I get I'm like, I envy Dorian, I envy anybody who's able to speak their mind on Twitter, and so I am tempted to create a trolling account for Twitter. But man, your tweets sometimes like they like I try not to laugh, but like I wake up, I'm like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. Um,
it's it's so funny that you mentioned that, because when I came back from Europe and I was applying for that job. And it's so funny how things work out, because it was just like the timing was impeccable. We were thinking about coming back. I checked the job board for the state of Washington, and it was like my previous lead developer happened to be on this brand new project. I sent him an email the day before I started looking at jobs and just being like, "Hey man, what's going on? How are things looking over there? Is there any work?" kind of deal. And then I saw the job posting. I had no idea that he was on that team, and I was just like, oh, maybe I could apply for this one. And he was like, oh, there's one role that you'd probably be great for. And I was like, oh, that's the one that I looked at. And I told myself, I was like, if I come back to the States, if I don't get this job, I'll go YouTube full time for at least 3 months and like
yep.
pay for rent out of pocket in Washington, where we were going to be at. And I ended up getting that job. But during that interview process and all that, dude, I purged my social media, and I went in, I made a lot of videos private. I even in the YouTube editor, I went in and edited some of the videos that were there, because I was just like, dude, if somebody sees this, they're going to be like, we're not hiring this guy. And I deleted a bunch of tweets, like a bunch of tweets, because I was just like, oh, this is not good. I remember I got into, like, there was one tweet that went viral and made a bunch of people really
Oh my
pissed off.
goodness.
That was about, like I said, it was something like, if you're poor and you're over like the age of 25 and you live in America, it's all your fault, or something like that, right? Which then everybody got riled up, and people were like, "Oh, you don't understand what it's like living with a disability." I was like, "Come on, that's what you get out of this." I was like, and the funny thing is that the person that got mad at me that said that was someone who actually had a disability and learned to code and got a job. And he
Oh
was
my
just like,
goodness.
and I'm like, you're proving my point, right? And then he blocked me before I could even say anything. But like, I was like, oh shit, if somebody sees that tweet, I gotta delete that. So yeah, I ended up deleting so much stuff. And the only thing I can think of, if I tried to apply for a job, especially DevRel, because I would use my Dorian Develops and I would use my Twitter because I have a following, or a little following on that. Like, if they saw some of the shit I post on there, they're gonna be like, we can't hire this guy. He's a liability, which is, I don't know. Twitter's it. I don't take Twitter seriously, and I find it hilarious that some people do. I get if you do it for a job, but like people who actually get so upset with like 140 characters or 240 characters, whatever. Like man, if 240 characters can mess up your day like that, you don't have
Easy.
enough going on in your life.
Which is crazy. And what's crazy, like Twitter, like someone just said on that, they brought up John Summers, who used to have like the programming YouTube channel. Now he does like some like bulldog mindset stuff, whatever. Like
Yeah.
once in a while, check on him. But I didn't know he got canceled on Twitter, which is, and that's like a thing. And here's the thing, like, and like you're like I am like 4 years older, like because you said you're like 39, turning 40, but we're still like that old generation, and that stuff like doesn't make sense to us. But the younger generation, that's like their norm, and so I find myself actually having to kind of opt out of that stuff because I'm not from a generation that understands like what the whole thing is, and I might say something that like just think back in the day, we used to say stuff to each other which was kidding. You say it today, it's like you're not joking. You need to go do this. You need to go that. You need to like. I'm like, no. It's literally means nothing. And no one back then got offended. Just stupid stuff kids say. But it's like, yeah, sometimes you just have to opt out, and it's crazy.
No, yeah, sometimes it's better to just be quiet these days, but I agree. I grew up like man, I grew up like in the hood, man. Like your best friends, all you did all day was clown each other and talk shit and crack jokes and make fun of your shoes, your mom, your house, your car. Like you weren't safe around your friends like the way that I grew up, right? And like it was also like I don't want to say it was always because it was the 90s, but I would say that like I mean, where you're from, right? Like it's a little different. Like dude, you get into it with somebody, you're fighting, like
Yeah,
you're settling the whatever beef it is. And it's almost as if now we don't have that because like I guess maybe kids aren't outside as much. I don't know what it is. I feel like a boomer talking about it, right? But like I feel like at least the way that I grew up, like your friends clowned on you the whole time, and if it got taken too far, you guys would have a squabble the next day, you're friends again. And then like if you really had problems with someone who wasn't your friend, you'd settle that stuff. And now we live in this day and age where it's just like everybody's feelings get hurt for like the dumbest little things, and it's like you can't say anything without offending somebody. And it's like man, like it's this level of softness where I don't want to get going into like a whole boomer tangent, but it just I don't know. Like you said you grew up in Russia, right?
yeah. And then I grew
Like
up.
bro, in Ukraine too.
Like I lived
Every,
in Ukraine, but when I moved here, I moved to Connecticut, and people like, oh, no one knows what Connecticut is. Connecticut's between Boston and New York, and there's a city called Bridgeport and Hartford. They're one of the pretty rough cities because a lot of drugs goes through Boston to New York, and so it's like in between base. And so, like, if you run your mouth, like, I mean, you like, and back when I came, gang violence was a lot more prominent than it is now, but
yeah.
it's still like you just don't say stuff. But here's an interesting thing, just to kind of make a little funny joke. So, like, I learned, like, sometimes just keep your mouth shut and you don't say anything because you say something to the wrong person, you're going to get jumped, you're going to get in trouble. And Texas apparently still has, but it's not like your invitation to just challenge people to the fight. But where I live in Austin, we have mutual combat
Yeah.
law that says if two parties consent, you could fight. I've never been in a fight in Texas because people just not gonna treat it lightly. They're just like everybody in Texas is nicer, and I realize why. Partly because of this law, and partly everybody has
And
guns, and
yeah,
everybody's
everybody's
just
got
like
guns.
nice to
Yeah.
each other. No one cares. No one says like I've never been cut off like in traffic, and people like I'm like. Someone says Hartford is a wonderful. Oh yeah, I see who said. Brian said they do have a nice music scene there because one of the dudes here, we both from Connecticut. Funny story here. Brian and I, we went to Manchester Community College together before I even tried to figure out what to do, and we took a public speaking class. And so when people see me now, the way I talk way too much, they would think that this is something that's natural to me. And me and him were in that class, and I think I almost flunked out of public speaking, which is hilarious. Complete tangent, sorry, but go ahead.
No, that's pretty funny. No, it's also funny because as soft as Washington State is, they have mutual combat law there as well. And I think that there's an old video on the internet of this MMA fighter who used to dress up as a superhero. Oh, I wish I remember his name right now, but he used to be on YouTube. This is like over 10 years ago. And there was like a group of dudes that would dress up as superheroes and they would walk around Seattle at night and stop people from like doing crimes. And they use the
Yes.
mutual combat law in front of two cops, and this
Oh my
dude
god.
just leg kicks the shit out of
Oh my
somebody like
goodness.
multiple times. Like it's so painful to watch. Phoenix Jones is the guy's name.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think I saw a news story like on him,
yeah,
like
and
they
he,
were joined to
yeah,
later
and he
on.
used the mutual combat law in
That's
that
so
case, and
funny.
the two cops watched it, and then because as soon as somebody yields or is knocked out or something, you're supposed to stop. But yeah, if you got two agreeing parties, and I think that we need to make that law
What's
a nationwide
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. Here's the crazy thing. So you're into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing forever. I've also done Muay Thai, boxing, whatever. And the more of that combat arts I do, like like I don't even remember the last time I had a fight. Maybe when I was younger, like in my teenage years, I might have had like a fight or something. But like once I started like doing martial arts and training, like that's the last thing that I want to do. And I feel like there's something to be said about training jiu-jitsu as a man, like to kind of figure out like that sometimes like to build your confidence and never having to have this need that you have to like run your mouth to make yourself sound tougher. I don't know if it's like pretty, maybe you didn't do jiu-jitsu for the same reasons I did, but like, we're just kind of wondering.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I also think that there's a bit of a like you get it out of your system, right?
Mm,
Which I think I mean I don't want to get into any political debates, but as
yeah, yeah,
men,
yeah.
like we kind of need that. Like I do believe that like there's a reason why that Fight Club book and movie were so popular,
Yep.
and there's a lot of that Fight Club aspect, and I guess the kind of like what they're talking about and doing in there, that it almost feels like that when you join an MMA gym or a jiu-jitsu gym, right, where it's just like this group of guys that get together and girls that get together and beat each
Tough
other up.
girls, god damn.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember I was boxing at the time before I started training jujitsu. And I was, boxing was just kind of like for fun, lose a little weight, get in shape, and learn how to throw some punches. I sparred a tiny bit, but it was just like it was not like I wasn't trying to be a fighter. I wasn't trying. I didn't go into it with that. But then I got into jujitsu because a friend of mine who was much smaller than me ended up like choking me out in my living room, and I was hooked from the get go. But it was like this very humbling experience the first few times going, and like realizing like, oh man, like this is tough. And there were like girls that were better than me, young kids that were better than me, and even if I tried to like muscle through stuff, like the technique was where it was at. And then at the end of it, like you feel good, like you got beat up, but you feel like you burned some energy, you feel like you learned some stuff. And as you get better at it, you start realizing like just recently there's this white belt at the gym that my old gym that I'm at in Vegas right now, and he's a big guy, dude, like muscular bodybuilder, big. He's like, I want to say at least he's got to be like 6'2" because he's taller than me, and I'm like 6 foot, but he's beefy, bro. But he's a white belt and I'm a purple belt, and he was tough, because he's just so damn strong. But I got him, I took his
Nice.
back, I rear naked choked him, and it's just like, wow. Like if you were to put me and him next to one another, and you had people vote on who would win in a match, probably look at him and be like, oh, that dude will kill this guy because I look kind of skinny and compared to him. And it's a good feeling, and I think that it's good for us to be tested. And I credit jujitsu for a lot of my accomplishments. Like it helped me get off of video games. It helped me realize that like if I focus on something and do something that's like super hard, I can, if I stuck with it long enough, I can get better and eventually like get pretty good at it. And that's one of the big reasons why I think I learned how to code. I kind of applied that same mindset where it's just like, I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm just going to keep showing up. I don't care how hard it is. I know if I do it long enough, I'll get good. And I did that with YouTube too.
Yeah, when we moved to America, I had a lot of hurt from my parents because my mom divorced and they knew that I would never leave Russia. But at the time, I did not understand that they wanted me to have a better life. And so they told me that both my mom and my biological dad would come. And they only said that to me because they knew that if he said, hey, I'm not going with you. This is just how divorce works. You got to go with your mom, and I got to stay here in Moscow. Um, like I would have never left. So they convinced me to leave. And when I got here, you know, my dad never came. And so I had so much anger and resentment to my family because of that, that I just would get in trouble, do all this stuff. And the thing that set me straight was getting, at the time I got into like Taekwondo, and then eventually I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but like having an activity that took that anger as a teenager that I had and kind of focus it in a more productive way, really, I feel it saved my life. And that's why I'm like a big proponent. Anybody, like if you have kids, get them into jujitsu. It's just like so good. And by the way, like people that don't know jujitsu, and if and you heard Dorian says like I'm a purple belt, and you look at the belts, so like there's white, blue, purple, brown, black, whatever, and you're like, oh, he's just a purple belt. There's no such a thing as he's just a purple belt. Purple belts are killers. That's just the nature of the sport. And good lord, there's some purple belts just destroy everybody, which is kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
At some point I'm like, just give him like a black belt at this point. What do you have this purple belt running around killing everybody? But anyway,
Uh,
uh, so
for
um
sure, for sure.
so you still training jiu-jitsu, and like what is your
Yeah.
plan? Like, cuz as we get older, like jiu-jitsu is a good art, but if you don't train smart, like you could get injuries if you don't take time to recover. You're trying to fight, like go all out all the time. Do you plan to continue training for a while, or do you have like a little like end strategy, or you know
So, man, I really want to get my black belt eventually. I should honestly like well, you know how life is, right? Like you take breaks and stuff, and I should at least have a brown belt by now. I missed a few promotions and COVID screwed some things up, and I definitely should be a brown belt. And from the amount of time I've been training, I definitely
yeah, yeah,
have been training long enough to be a black belt. But it's just the way it is, and I'm definitely not there skill wise. But I I tell myself I'm gonna keep going until I get injured. It's just too like if I blow my knee out again, if I do something that's
mm,
just like that's it, I'm done.
yeah,
I think I'll be done because I'm getting to that point where like one big injury for me now at 40 that really like puts me out, requires surgery. I'll probably
yeah,
call it, but I would like to see myself getting a black belt eventually.
yeah.
I this year has been the most consistent year that I've had since COVID, and I got 2 stripes on my purple belt
Nice.
just this year alone, and I plan to continue training as I travel. Like I'm in Vegas now, and we're gonna be here for the whole month. So I went 3 times this week, and I'm going tomorrow for open mat, so that's 4 times, and I've also lifted 3 times this week. So not having a job has given me a lot of free time. So I've been lifting and training, and I plan to train up until we leave for Cambodia. And I don't know. I've been looking, and there's gyms in Asia, but it's like who goes to Thailand and trains jujitsu?
Dude, I
It's
know.
like you train Muay Thai, right? So I'm like, I think I'm probably gonna switch it up and maybe do some Muay Thai while I'm there, because it's
Yeah,
just there's more Muay Thai gyms everywhere than
yeah.
there is jujitsu, and it's a little cheaper, and it's just more available. And then I don't know. It feels like yeah. If I'm gonna be in Thailand, I should be doing Muay Thai, not Jiu-Jitsu. But if I find some Jiu-Jitsu gyms, or if I find a gym that has both, I'll probably try to train a little bit. I've got my gi, I brought it with me because I plan on doing it, but we'll just see how it goes.
If you
If I
ever
can, I will.
find yourself in Bangkok, definitely check out Bangkok Fight Lab. I haven't been in Thailand like past 2 years now, but the dude there is really good dude. And if you, they do like Muay Thai, but they also do Jiu-Jitsu. Really good place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I will actually be there in mid-April for a few days, and then we'll definitely be going back to Thailand. I don't know if we'll go back to Bangkok, but
yeah.
we've got a few places in Thailand that we
Sorry,
want to
I didn't mean
visit.
to laugh. I was gonna say Bangkok is something you do when you're younger. But it's Bangkok is just like a crazy city, and there's just so much smog too, and it's just like it's so wild. I would go to like you know um, outside of Bangkok for sure. You know, Chiang Mai is like a big one. A lot of people go. It's like
Hmm.
a really cool place.
Yep, with Chiang Mai, and that's one of the places on our radar. We also want to check out like Koh Lanta or like some of the
Nice.
like lower parts for the beaches. Just depends when we get there if it's still the good season, because I think Chiang Mai, I think it's in January they
They
start
do get
burning
monsoons
everything.
like crazy there.
Yeah. I guess they
Um,
burn a bunch of their fields
yeah,
for
also
it's
do
just part
that
of their
there.
agriculture, and I heard that you don't want to be there, at least in the north, when they're doing that, because it's just the air quality is terrible.
Dude, I have a crazy story, and I don't want to keep you here like too long. So like, want to be mindful of your time, but make sure like all your visas and set is done. So one day I was in Thailand, and you could say I think 90 days, unless it changed or like whatever, no problem. And then my visa ran out, and I was in um, like on the border. I think like Laos and Thailand. And there's actually a place called the Golden Triangle, which sounds like that's probably where all the drugs and bad stuff goes through. Probably true. And so my visa already expired, but I had to leave the country, come back, and get it restamped to be like, hey, whatever. So I crossed the river from Thailand to Laos with my fiance at the time. Thank God. If she did not come, I probably would have been killed. I go into this building in the jungle. There's nothing for miles. It's just this building. I'm like in the jungle, and there's like the same dude, and the same dude's like, "So you need a visa?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "All right. Well, it's a lengthy process, and there's some certain things you have to do." And so basically, he made me go between a bunch of different tables. It was still the same guy, and he had his gun prominently visible, and he basically extorted all my money until I had nothing left.
Oh,
That was the
Jesus.
charge for my visa. And then on the way back, after like he gave me my thing, the boat dude was gone. And then when he finally came back, he's like, "It'll cost this much money." I'm like, "I don't have any more money left. Can you just please take me to Bangkok? And once we get there, I will have money. I will pay you." So don't do visas through sketchy places. I'm just going to throw that out there and, do it the normal way. Just fly somewhere.
No,
It's fine.
for sure, for sure. We've kind of looked into some of that because we've heard that you have the like do visa runs, and Thailand's actually
Yeah.
pretty good about their visas. Also, I think I tweeted this, but you can, and I don't even remember. I think I saw it on TikTok, but then I looked into it. Thailand offers all kinds of different education visas, and Muay Thai is one of the things that you can
Mm.
study. So you can do Thai cooking, you can do Thai language, you can do Thai massage, you can do Muay Thai, and there's another one. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but all of them qualify for their student visa, and I think you can stay for up to 2 years. And
Holy
to
Jesus.
to get the Muay Thai one, you just have to do Muay Thai twice a week. I mean, you can
Oh,
do it more.
snap.
You can do it more, but the minimum is twice a week. So you can get a
Dude, you're
visa to
planting
live there
seeds
as a
right now that
student.
you don't even know.
Yeah, that's why Thailand was actually the first on my list of places to go. We ended up deciding to go to different places because of the groups that we're going to be meeting there. But Thailand seems to be, from what I've heard, it's a couple $100 to apply for that visa, and it's not like a like you're not gonna get denied. It's a pretty easy process. You just have to go to a legit gym that like signs the paperwork, and
Yeah.
that they're approved by the agency to be one of the schools that you can learn at. So just FYI.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and so how long are you planning to travel?
Question marks.
Okay, okay. I like
We
that.
got a one-way ticket to Cambodia, and then our current itinerary is 2 weeks in Cambodia. Then we're gonna break it up and go to Bangkok for about 4 days, just because we couldn't fly directly to where we wanted to in Vietnam from where we were at in Cambodia. So we kind of finagled like how to break that up. So we're going Bangkok for 4 days, and then we're going to Vietnam for a month, and then after that, like we want to go like all the places we want to go. I don't know if we'll hit them all, but I'm trying to maybe do at least a month in each place. Where we want to make sure we go to Bali. We want to check out the Philippines, and we want to do
Nice.
Thailand, and we're also thinking Malaysia. But things might change, and as like from what me and my wife have discussed, like I need time for to make this happen, like spinning up some apps and stuff, like I feel comfortable that I can probably build out an idea. Like if you give me a month, I can probably get like a good little solid, app built or SaaS built. I have some ideas that I'm going to start working on soon. So, but you know, that doesn't mean it's going to be successful or make money. So I know that I need enough time to be able to make content and then try to make some whatever I can make with my programming skills. And as of right now, we're kind of like we're saying a year to 2 years,
Yeah.
but we don't know for sure. And we do know that we want to come back to visit family and
Yeah.
stuff. So that might break things up a little bit, but I don't have a definitive timeline, but I know that it's not gonna be like a short time. It's gonna be at least like a year or more,
Yeah.
hopefully.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And good food all around. So this is gonna be amazing. But again, I think we did like a good solid, hour and 40 minutes and I definitely wanna be mindful of time. I know it's getting late. Huge thank you for stopping by. Always appreciate and great to catch up. We had stream long time ago, which was pretty awesome. And to have you back is always awesome. Thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me. I like doing these things. It's fun to chat with people. I plan on doing more of them. Love to have you
Nice.
back on the channel, and we
Oh,
can
it'll be awesome.
we can continue the conversation over there. Same kind of thing, pretty casual. I'm trying to come
Yeah.
up with an interview structure because I've got I'm straight up with everything I say, right? So I want to make sure that I can get some clippable content. So
Yeah.
my idea is I'm going to do like an intro. It's going to be super casual, but then I'm going to have like 3 to 5 questions that I ask. Everyone's going to have different questions, but then those are going to be the ones that I make my clips off of, and the rest is just us bullshitting because
Yeah,
I
that'll be
hate
sick.
I hate that podcasts have become like everybody wants to make content from their podcast. So then it's like very structured and it's not like a friendly conversation. It's basically like, hey, I'm going to ask you these 10 questions because I plan on making shorts. I plan on making videos
Yeah.
from it. So to get that out of the way, it'll be like, look, I got these 3 questions. After that, we can talk about whatever the hell you want. So I think that's how I'm going to do it.
God damn it! You should have said that at the beginning. I could have like
Oh,
stole your plan for. No, I'm just kidding.
oh yeah, yeah.
Because
Feel free
I
to
don't
steal it.
plan anything. I'm like whatever. Let's have a conversation. No, it's awesome. That's why it's funny because like I wanted to make like I mean I for the size of my channel, like I know it's not gonna be crazy. I am going to release like cut it and release it as a video.
Oh, for sure.
But I was like, let me put a little bit of effort into like the thumbnail, and I was like Dorian exposed or like some bullshit like that, like which is like, but I mean like I just love talking to people because I respect like I mean I failed at so many like business endeavors. So to me, like when I could talk to someone who has achieved certain things through difficulties in their lives, like to me it's like a learning opportunity. And so like for me, like I just want to like figure out like what was like your path, like how did you do it, and to kind of like showcase like listen, like we're all humans, we all struggle, we all have hard times, and we just have to work through those things. Like as much as people like sometimes get offended when I say it, like Dorian's not special, Paul is not special, people watching are not special, we're all in the same boat, we all eat, we all pee, whatever the hell you also do, but we have the same kind of like struggles, and what defines us is our ability to keep going, and that's what it is. And that's why I love having you, because like seeing your channel go from 12,000 to wherever you are now, last count, like you're up there. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But
Yours will pop off too, man. It'll happen.
one day.
It's already, I mean, man, when I remember when your channel like I mean, you're almost at 10,000, dude.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
not a
I'm
small
proud. I'm
number,
proud of myself. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm proud. I'm
for
not gonna
sure.
lie. So yeah, thank you everyone who tuned in. Obviously you know where to find Dorian, and again, thank you for stopping by, and everybody have a great one. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks.